Long ago, in the heart of the green hills of a song, there was a village that seemed to breathe with life. The sun always rose gently over its zinc roofs, painting them in gold, while the laughter of children floated across the sandy paths. Farmers whistled on their way to the fields, women carried calabashes balanced on their heads, and elders sat beneath the irako tree, sharing stories older than the mountain itself. Isong was a place where no one truly walked alone. Every birth, every harvest, every sorrow was shared. But among all its people, there was one name spoken with both wonder and affection. Efeti. She was the girl with no father, no mother, and no inheritance except the wooden hut her parents left behind. Yet, in a village where community was life, Efeti's story was different. For though she had no family, she somehow belonged to everyone. When a baby was born, Efeti was the first to fetch water. When hunters returned from the forest, she was the one who rushed to offer palm wine. And in the evenings, when a moon turned the square silver, the children pressed close around her, wide-eyed, as she spun tales of clever tortoises and foolish leopards. The children called her Efeti, though she was still young. Her kindness was like the mountain breeze, gentle, refreshing, and impossible to keep for oneself. Yet behind her smile, life was not easy. There were mornings when her stomach growled with hunger, but she still gave her only roasted plantain to a passing child. Nights when the wind whistled through the cracks of her hut, and she whispered prayers into the darkness. She had nothing, yet she gave everything. And so, it happened that when the king of Isong died, the elders gathered the people to announce the future. A new king would rise. The young prince Isambai would sit on the throne. But before he could wear the crown, the ancestors demanded a test. He must choose a wife, the elders declared, not by beauty, nor by wealth, nor by family name, but by the sign that truth will reveal. The village erupted. Mothers pulled their daughters closer. Fathers smiled in pride. Who would not dream of their child becoming queen? But in the crowd stood Efeti, quiet. She said to herself, who will notice an orphan among chiefs' daughters? And yet, fate is like the winding path up the mountain. It never runs straight. The girl with no one, yet loved by all. And on that bright day in Isong village, Efeti's destiny was about to begin. The sun rose bright over Mount Bongo, its golden rays sliding down the green slopes and spilling into the valley where Isong village lay. The air carried the smell of roasted corn, and from every wooden house with zinc roofing came the sounds of people preparing for the great gathering. The elders had called for all maidens to come to the village square, and the news spread like fire. By mid-morning, the square was filled. Women came with baskets of groundnuts to chew. Men leaned on their carved walking sticks, and children scampered about, their bare feet kicking up the red earth. At the far end, under the great irako tree, the elders sat on carved stools, their faces stern and wise. Beside them stood Isambai, the prince, tall and proud in his wrapper of fine cloth, a string of cowries around his neck. When the talking drums fell silent, the oldest elder rose. His beard was white as the foam on the waves of Lamola, and his voice carried like thunder rolling across the hills. Daughters of Isong, he said, lifting his staff high, the time has come. Our king has gone to join the ancestors, and his son, Isambai, must soon sit upon the throne. But the throne is heavy. It must be carried by truth. The queen who stands by his side must not be chosen by beauty, wealth, or family name. She must be chosen by her honesty, for a crown without truth will crush the head that wears it. The people murmured in agreement. From a calabash, the elder drew out small brown seeds and showed them to the crowd. His eyes swept over the maidens gathered before him. Young women in bright dresses, beads clinking on their necks and wrists, hair shining with palm oil. Each of you will take one seed, he said. Go and plant it in the soil of your compound. Tend it with care as you would tend a child. After 3 weeks, return to this square with what has grown. She who brings forth the truest harvest shall be queen. One by one, the maidens stepped forward. The seeds were placed into their palms. Efeti, quiet as always, received hers with both hands. She gazed at it, small and ordinary, yet something about it made her chest tighten. She bowed and left with the others. As the crowd dispersed, the square buzzed with excitement. Mothers whispered advice to their daughters. Water it with river water. Add goat droppings to the soil. Fathers boasted that their daughters' seeds would grow taller than plantain trees. Everyone dreamed of the throne. But that night, as Efeti sat alone in her hut, she placed the seed gently on a calabash plate before planting it. She remembered her late mother's words, often spoken when they walked the farm roads together. Efeti, truth is like fire. It burns away lies, even if the whole world believes the lies. The next morning, Efeti cleared a small patch of soil behind her house. She dug carefully, planted the seed, and covered it with earth. Day after day, she watered it, sang to it, even prayed over it. Yet the soil remained bare. Meanwhile, in the rest of a song, the maidens boasted of tiny green shoots pushing through the ground. Some carried their pots about to show neighbors. Laughter and pride filled the air. But Efeti's heart grew heavy. Still, she refused to cheat. She could not replace the seed. She could not betray her parents' memory or the ancestors watching from the mountain. So she knelt by her little patch of empty soil and whispered, "If truth is the only thing I have, let it be enough." And far above, the mountain wind stirred, as if the ancestors themselves were listening. 3 weeks passed like the beating of a drum, fast yet heavy. Every dawn, the roosters crowed, the village woke, and the maidens checked their seeds. Green pots lined the verandas of wooden houses with zinc roofs, and gossip moved from compound to compound. Some boasted of tall stems with wide leaves, others of tiny flowers that had begun to bloom. The air was thick with excitement. But behind her hut, Efeti's patch of soil remained bare. Each morning she knelt before it, touching the earth as though her hands might coax life out of it. Each evening she whispered a prayer. "Spirit of my mother, spirit of my father, do not let me be ashamed." Yet nothing came. Her neighbors pitied her. Some laughed quietly, shaking their heads. How can an orphan girl hope to be queen? Look at her soil. It is empty like her house, one girl said. Others urged her to buy another seed from the market. Who will know? They asked. But Efeti refused. When the 21st day arrived, the talking drums called the people to the village square. The sound rolled through the farms, across the palm trees, and into every corner of a song. The villagers gathered quickly, the men in their wrappers, the women with colorful headscarves, and the children running barefoot in the red dust. The maidens came one by one, carrying their pots proudly on their heads. Green shoots bent and swayed as the women walked. Laughter and songs filled the air as families praised their daughters. The square looked like a garden of flowers. And then came Efeti. Her dress was plain, her pot heavy in her hands. Inside it was only soil, dark, silent, and bare. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Some maidens covered their mouths to hide their smiles. One girl whispered loudly, "She could not even grow a leaf." Another added, "How can someone like this stand beside Prince Esambai?" Efeti's cheeks burned, but she walked forward with steady steps, her eyes fixed on the elders under the great Irako tree. She placed her pot on the ground and bowed her head, saying nothing. Prince Esambai watched closely. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. His gaze lingered on Efeti, then moved across the row of pots heavy with plants. The eldest elder rose slowly, leaning on his staff. His beard gleamed in the sunlight, and his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. He looked from pot to pot, then lifted his hand for silence. The square grew still. Even the children stopped fidgeting. "My daughters," he said, his voice deep, 3 weeks ago, we gave you seeds to plant. You have all returned with pots full of green life, except one." He pointed to Efeti. Murmurs rose, but he raised his staff again. "Listen carefully. Those seeds we gave you were boiled until they were dead. They could never grow." A gasp spread like fire through the crowd. Faces turned pale. Mothers stared at their daughters' pots, and some fathers bowed their heads in shame. The elder's voice rang out. "What we see before us are lies. Plants that were replaced, seeds that were hidden. Only one among you has brought the truth, soil that tells no false story." He pointed once more at Efeti, who stood trembling, tears in her eyes. Prince Isambai stepped forward, his wrapper brushing the dust. He looked at her with a steady gaze and spoke. "The ancestors have shown the sign. Honesty cannot be hidden. Efeti, though you have nothing but soil, you are richer than all these who stand before me. You are the one I choose." The square erupted in noise, some in shock, some in joy. Children ran to Efeti, clutching her hands, clinging to her dress. The other maidens lowered their heads in shame. And in that moment, the orphan girl with empty soil became the chosen one. The morning after the judgment, the village of Asong buzzed like a beehive. Children still sang Efeti's name as they fetched water from the stream. Old men spoke of the wisdom of the elders, and women shook their heads in wonder. An orphan girl, living in a small wooden house with a zinc roof, had been chosen above daughters of chiefs and traders. But not everyone rejoiced. Whispers began to coil through the narrow paths and compounds. Some maidens who had cheated felt bitterness rising in their hearts. How can a girl with nothing sit on the throne? One scoffed as she pounded cocoyam. Another muttered, "She bewitched the prince. There is no other way." Their mothers, too, fanned the flames of envy, complaining that their daughters' beauty and family names had been overlooked for a girl who owned no land, no wealth, no lineage. Efeti felt the change in the air. Once friendly smiles became cold stares. Where children once ran freely to her hut, some mothers now pulled them back, whispering, "Stay away. She's too proud now." Her heart ached, yet she said nothing. She swept her compound as always, fetched water as always, and greeted her neighbors with respect. But in her chest, a small fear grew. Would the people ever truly accept her? That evening, the elders summoned her to the palace square. Torches burned, throwing long shadows across the red earth. Prince Isambai was waiting, seated on a carved stool beside the great Irako tree. His face was calm, but his eyes shone with a light Efeti had never seen before. "Efeti," he said gently, as she bowed before him, "do not be afraid. The whispers you hear are the cries of those whose hearts are not clean. The ancestors chose you, and their choice cannot be broken." Efeti lifted her eyes to him, her voice trembling. "But my prince, I am nothing. I have no father, no mother, no wealth. The people laugh at me. How can I sit beside you as queen?" Isambai leaned forward, his voice steady. "You are not nothing, Efeti. You are everything they are not. You are truth, and truth is greater than wealth, stronger than lineage, brighter than beauty. It was not I who chose you. It was the sign the ancestors revealed. If I turn away from it, the throne will curse me." His words settled into her heart like cool water on dry ground. For the first time, Efeti allowed herself to breathe. That night, the village square was filled with music. Drummers beat rhythms that echoed into the forest. Women sang in high voices, and men danced with rattles tied to their ankles. It was a feast to honor the prince's future queen. Efeti was led to sit beside Isambai, her plain dress replaced by one woven with bright colors, beads adorning her neck and wrists. The firelight danced on her face, and the people watched, some with joy, others with envy. But even in that moment of celebration, Efeti remained humble. She thought of her little hut with its rattling zinc roof, of the empty pot of soil that had brought her to this place, and of her parents' voices whispering from the world beyond. Truth is like fire. It cannot be hidden, and though envy stirred in the hearts of some, there were others, children, widows, poor farmers, who saw hope in Efeti's rise. For if an orphan girl could be lifted to the throne, then perhaps the ancestors had not forgotten them either. That night, as the drums faded and the fires burned low, Efeti knew her journey was only beginning. The crown was near, but so too were trials she could not yet imagine. The day of the coronation dawned with a sky as clear as river water. From the slopes of Mountain Bongo, the morning mist rolled down into the valley, wrapping Isong village in a soft white blanket. The talking drums began before sunrise, their rhythms echoing from one wooden house with a zinc roof to the next, summoning every soul to the village square. Women tied their brightest wrappers and oiled their skin until it glowed. Men beat drums and blew horns carved from antelope. Children danced barefoot in the dust, their laughter filling the air like birdsong. This was no ordinary day. It was the day Prince Isambai would wear the crown of his fathers, and Efeti, the orphan girl, would stand beside him as queen. But beneath the songs and dancing, tension stirred like smoke from hidden fire. Some still grumbled, their voices sharp with envy. "How can she rule us?" they asked. "What has she done to deserve the throne?" The murmurs spread like ants across the square, reaching even Efeti's ears as she was led forward in her ceremonial attire. Her hair braided with cowries, her wrapper woven in deep red and gold, beads resting on her neck. She walked slowly, her heart beating hard. Every step seemed to echo the doubts of the people. Will they ever accept me? Am I truly enough? The elders sat waiting under the great Irako tree, their staffs planted firmly in the earth. Beside them stood Isambai, tall and calm, his face strong with the weight of destiny. When Efeti reached him, the drums stopped. Silence fell. The oldest elder rose, his beard shining in the sun. He lifted his hand and spoke. "People of Isang, today we crown your king. But a king cannot rise without a queen beside him, for the throne is heavy, and the crown burns when it rests on lies. The ancestors have given us a sign no one can deny. Yet before we set the crown, let the people see the truth with their own eyes." He turned to Efeti. "Child, step forward." Efeti's legs trembled as she obeyed. The elder lifted the very pot she had carried 3 weeks before, its soil still bare, still empty. He held it high for all to see. "These are the seeds," he thundered. "Boiled, dead, they cannot grow. Yet look, every maiden but this one brought green shoots and flowers. Lies dressed as truth. But this girl, Efeti, brought only soil. She did not fear shame. She did not cheat. She stood by the truth, though the truth made her look empty. And for this, the ancestors lifted her." A hush swept over the crowd. Then, like a flame catching dry grass, the truth burned away doubt. Mothers nodded. Fathers clapped their hands. Children shouted her name. Even those who once envied her bowed their heads, for the sign could not be hidden. The elder placed his staff back on the ground. "Efeti is the queen, and she shall walk with Isambai, not because of wealth, nor beauty, nor name, but because of truth." At that moment, the crown was set upon Isambai's head. The people erupted into cheers. Drums beat louder than ever, horns blared, and the air shook with song. Isambai reached for Efeti's hand and lifted it high. Her heart swelled, and for the first time, she smiled without fear. The orphan girl with nothing now had everything, not because of chance, but because she held fast to honesty when all others bowed to lies. That evening, as the fires burned and the dancers stamped the earth, Efeti stood beside Isambai on the raised platform. She looked out over her people, the same people who once pitted her, doubted her, even mocked her. Now their voices rose together, calling her name. And in her heart, she whispered a prayer to her parents and the ancestors. "Thank you. Truth has led me here, and by truth I will rule." Thus began the reign of King Isambai and Queen Efeti, the reign of truth carried by the blessing of the ancestors and the love of the people. So, my friends, what do you think? Was it easy for Efeti to stand by the truth when everyone mocked her? What lesson does her courage teach us today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let your voice join the story, because every tale lives on through those who tell it. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more hearts can hear the tales of our ancestors and the wisdom they left behind.